Welcome to the Stories Told podcast. This is episode 105, Furry, but not fuzzy.
This is the Stories Told podcast. Two authors talking about stories in movies, TV, and of course, books.
I'm Michael Grayford. I write action-adventure stories in fantasy and sci-fi worlds, sometimes for younger readers and sometimes for adults. And I try to always inject at least a little bit of humor.
And I am author E.W. Barnes, and I write action-adventure, time travel novels, and space opera science fiction. Thousands of years, thousands of worlds. But be forewarned, beyond here, there will be spoilers. Are you ready for the adventure? Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Stories Told podcast. I'm author E.W. Barnes, and with me is author Michael Grayford. And today we're talking about the story told in the movie Monsters, Inc. And I want to just give everybody a little heads up. I am actually recording this while traveling. I'm doing this on earpods. So if there's problems with the quality, I apologize in advance for that. Hopefully there won't be when I go back to edit this sound. But if there is, hopefully it's not too bad for folks. So Mike, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing fantastico. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And what's new in your writing world?
Let's see. So I went through the latest edits from my editor, her notes.
These are the last ones.
Yeah, that was it. So now I have a quote final draft. I don't know if it needs any more tweaks. I think I'm done tweaking it now. So yeah, so I finished that, and now I'm working on the formatting, interior and exterior formatting.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. So that's good. I'm done book-wise. I just gotta, do all the production stuff.
Yep, make it pretty.
Yeah. What's going on in your writing world?
Well, not as much writing as I would like. Travel actually throws more of a wrench into things than you think it's going to. Oh, I'm going to have time. I'll have time. Yeah, I'm not really having time.
Yeah.
But as soon as we finish here, today I have time. So I'm going to be sitting down, working more in Meridian, getting some more words in. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that's great.
Well, thank you. And what interesting stories have you come across in books, movies, and television?
Nothing that I can think of new. I mean, I'm still watching some Superstore episodes. I started watching season 2 of Severance, which is a show we'll be discussing at some point here in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Those are the only things. Yeah.
And I have been continuing with the Doctor Who. I finished the last season of Doctor Who, the 10th Doctor. And I received as a gift the 11th Doctor DVDs. So I'm very excited. As soon as we get back from this trip, I'm going to start watching the 11th Doctor, who is my personal favorite. I think I've mentioned that before. So I'm really excited about that. And I decided I wasn't going to start it until after I got back, so I could really just sink into it and start watching that Doctor a day of the 11th Doctor. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, still sort of just reading the comfort foods read of The Lord of the Rings. And we've got a book that we're going to be talking about in the next time we touch base. I think it's okay to say that we're going to be talking about All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is the first of the Murderbot Diaries. And so I've got that right here in hand. I'm going to start reading that too.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Are you ready to talk about Monsters, Inc.?
Sure, let's do it.
Today we're talking about the story told in the movie Monsters, Inc. And I'm going to read to you the summary that comes up when you type Monsters, Inc. into Google. Monsters Incorporated is the largest scare factory in the monster world, and James P. Sullivan is one of its top scarers. Sullivan is a huge, intimidating monster with blue fur, large purple spots, and horns. His scare assistant, best friend, and roommate is Mike Wazowski, a green, opinionated, feisty little one-eyed monster. Visiting from the human world is Boo, a tiny girl who goes where no human has ever gone before. Did you enjoy this movie?
Yeah, I like this movie. I think there's a lot of fun, creative ideas in here. I really like the idea of harvesting screams of kids. as an energy source. And it's just such a weird thing to come up with. It's really fun, and it sets up the whole plot for the story, obviously. So I like the way that worked out, and I like that they make the monsters world similar enough to ours so that we can kind of relate. Even with like the characters and how they act and the workplace romance and things like that, and the monsters themselves are relatable. So it's not just these are monsters that are scary and this abstract kind of thing. It lets us get into the world and feel like, okay, I get what's going on here. It's creative, but it's not too weird. That really pushes us out. So I think they did a good job with that. What else? A lot of fun things. The doors in the different kids' bedrooms was also a cool idea. Very clever. Yeah, a lot of fun things. The stylistic world building, like the odorant instead of deodorant for the monsters that they use, and the news report of the baby born with 5 heads and how the parents are thrilled. Funny things like this. The contamination of the human world into their monster world, how they're all freaking out. It's funny. So I like a lot of that stuff that they set up is really fun. I thought it was smart to have the competition between Sullivan and Randall. How they're both trying to become, the all-time scarers or scarer of the year or whatever it is. Give you someone to root for and give you someone to root against, right? They set him up as a villain, and it's just like a villain of competition rather than a villain who's necessarily a bad guy. So I thought that was a smart way to introduce that character and their competition with him. I liked how they treat the kid coming into their monsters world as kind of like an alien invasion. It's like, what is this thing? Thought that was funny. And then a lot of little nods to previous movies in there, Toy Story and Finding Nemo and things like that. And the Harryhausen restaurant with Ray Harryhausen. Kids today, younger people today probably wouldn't get that reference that, Ray Harryhausen was a big special effects guy. He did a lot of the stop motion animation for movies like Sinbad and Jason and the Argonauts and things like that. So it was a nod back to him and his movies. That was cool. And I liked how they revealed that childhood, like the happiness, the laughter, can yield even more power than the screams.
Yeah.
It's like without telling you, they just show it a couple times and you see what's going on. You figure it out. So that was smart. And then let's see what else. Oh, I liked at the end that Mike Wazowski, right, the sort of wisecracking monster, he gets to participate, right? Because now it's about being funny. So he can make them laugh. So I thought that was cool. He gets to play his role at the end, especially after you see both Monsters Inc. and Monsters University. And I thought that some of the action sequences were fun. Seems like they would be fun for children to watch, but they also succeed in adding tension to the scene when they're like trying to chase down the door and they're like riding on the roller coaster kind of thing. I thought that was a cool idea. But a lot of fun stuff in the movie. And I liked the irony that they set up where the villains are trying to ditch Sully and Mike and keep them from stopping their plan. And, essentially killing Boo or draining her of scream or life energy or something, whatever they're going to actually do there. And it ends up being those three who end up saving the company and the scream industry, right? With laughter instead of screaming. So I really like the irony that they set up there. I thought that was a good system, good story structure and good kind of plot twist, even though you kind of know what's coming.
Yeah.
I thought it was good the way that they worked those two things against each other. So yeah, overall, I thought it was a good story, very fun, quick, plot. You're kind of in and out. They don't linger too long on things. So yeah, I enjoyed it. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I love everything that you just said. And the thing that I would add, and I think you alluded to this and maybe I just missed it, but I just love the irony of how they go in to scare the kids, but they're terrified of the kids.
Yeah, that's true. That's great.
I mean, it's so funny. It's like, it's playing on that monsters under the bed, monster in the closet thing, the things that our kids are afraid of, and then saying, oh, the monsters are scared of you too.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I love most about this film is just how well developed the characters are. They really are very distinctive, very well developed, and really stick to the personalities that have been, given to them. And everything that they do, their interactions are tight and believable, and every step that they take flows logically one from the next. So everything they do makes sense for them. Like we have Sully, he's a good guy. He's just a good guy, right? And he's doing his best for the scream industry so that they have energy, and he's going to be the best scarer he can possibly be. And he's a big fan of Mr. Waternoose, and he's a company man, and he's just going to do supporting all the time. And he finds himself in a situation that's just completely out of the norm for him. And he's still trying to function within that framework. I'm a good guy. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm a company man. And every time he makes those decisions, he's thrown another curve that he has to continue to try to see if he's going to be the same guy. And the real crux of it comes when Mike gets Boo's door from Randall, and he has an opportunity to make his problem go away by putting Boo back in her room through the door, and then he can be done with this crisis that they're experiencing. But he has to be true to who he is, which is a good guy. And he says no, he doesn't trust Randall, and he doesn't want to do this. So, and I just love that because he's very consistent throughout. Same with Mike. I actually think Mike is a fantastic character. I mean, Sully is very steady. He's steadfast. Mike is like all over the place, but he is loyal to Sully, all about Sully. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to do a good job by him. I'm his assistant. We're going to do great. We're going to have fun together. We are connected. I'm your best friend. You're my best friend. I mean, he is totally loyal. And his crux comes when his loyalty is challenged. It's, he all of a sudden, his loyalty is not working in the way he expected it to, and he's going to lose everything. He's going to lose his girlfriend. He's going to lose his job. He's going to lose everything because of Sully's need to be the good guy that he is. And that, that crisis happens when they're in the Himalayas. So, and it's really fascinating to watch him have to deal with it because that's who he is. And everything that he has done is not working out the way he expected it would, in the same way that everything that Sully has done has not worked out the way it expected it to. Being true to themselves, and yet it's sort of blowing up in their faces. And it's really cool to watch that. And this is just a children's movie. And yet they put in such time and care on these characters to really make sure that they stay consistent with who they are. I think that's fantastic.
I agree. I hear sometimes people making comments about other movies like, oh, it's just a movie for kids. Like you can just dismiss it. But this shows it's like, just because it's for kids doesn't mean it should be a stupid movie or a movie that doesn't make sense or the characters are consistent, right? You should still write it well so that it works for everybody who's watching it.
I agree. And they did a really nice job of it. But they didn't do it in such a way that you lost the charm of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just charming and wholly enjoyable is one of the words that I wrote.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good depth there. And there's also a lot of sort of bombastic action and visual gags and things like that for kids who maybe aren't as in tune with what's actually going on like under the scene, behind the scenes or under the hood. So it works, and I think most good kid movies are that way. They work for the kids and they also work for adults if they're done well. And I think that's
exactly. So we both like the movie, but is there anything that you might have changed as a writer?
There's a few things that I kind of noted as I was watching it through this time. There's a lot of like little plot things that like, wait, how did this do that? Why would this be this way? Like little things, like, I don't know, the world building things or little plot things. Most of that stuff I can just, ignore for the sake of the story and moving the action along. There's a few things that kind of pulled me out. I'll start with some small things. This one didn't really so much pull me out. It's just, after watching it again, it was something I thought of. Where do the doors come from? Like how do they get these doors that match the door of the people in the human world? They just have these doors. They just appear from somewhere. It's not necessary, but I would have maybe had a scene, even if it's just something in the background where we see like a clandestine monster team duplicating a door of like, a newborn or a young toddler or something, like, okay, we got another one. Here we go. And then they just create it. Yeah. Like I said, even if it's just like in the background of something where they're there, just as kind of a funny thing to explain it. This is a really small thing. Another thing was the banishment door where they go into the Himalayas. like, why would there just be a door on the side of a snowy mountain? It didn't make any sense to me, given that every other door connected to a meaningful location. I would have just made it, at least have it be a wooden door in a mountain cave or at a monastery or something. Because that just didn't make any sense, and there was no reason for it to be exactly like that. So that was a small thing too, but easily fixed. A bigger thing I noted, which is a character thing, at the first part of the story, there's this competition set up between Sully and Randall, I think his name was, the snaky guy.
Yeah.
And we see that Randall's definitely interested in that competition, right? It's like he wants to win, and that's like sort of the main antagonist that's set up at that moment. But then later, he doesn't really care about the competition at all. It's like he even dismisses it as like, oh, it's not about that. It's about, the scream machine, right? The scream sucker thing. But there was no real explanation why that changed. I don't know. I think you could just had one line. It's like, I found something more important to focus on, or something like that. It's like, yeah, that was a big deal to me then, but it's not now. Just a line to explain his shift, because otherwise, why would he be interested in the competition in the first place, right? If he had already had this other thing going on. So I would have had some small explanation there. Another thing was, and this one isn't a huge thing, but the CDA lady at the end, she's been investigating Monsters Inc. for 2.5 years. Like, what were you doing for 2.5 years? It's like, what were you thinking was wrong with this company? It didn't really make any sense. It's like they were struggling like every other company. There was no sign that, like, if they were succeeding while every other company was failing, then maybe you'd be curious as to what's going on there. Or if there was some kind of clue that, there's some person who'd ratted out that something was going on, but there was none of that. She was just there for some reason as an internal investigator. That didn't really make any sense, and I don't think it was necessary. You could have still had the CDA. The CDA could have found out what was going on and busted ahead of the company. All the ends could have been the same without that. And then this is another small thing, but where were Boo's parents? Like, she was gone for a long time. Like a whole night at least, and more. I would have liked to at least have seen them come in at the end and be thankful to see her back and all right again. Like, oh, where was she gone? Some kind of indication that she had parents that were there and concerned for her. Again, not huge, not necessarily important for the plot, but it is something that comes up when you watch it more than once, I think. Those are some of the things that I would have changed, just to tighten it up a little bit. Was there anything that you noticed or you would have fixed?
I like the things that you pointed out. I think those were really good. I kind of assumed that time was different in the monster world for Boo, and that I put her back exactly where from before. I don't know. I just kind of, when I went through, you're absolutely right. It's not explained. And so that was an assumption that I made. So it would be really good to have an explanation. I like your other points as well. And the only one I would add to that is that I actually found myself a little confused by the Scream Extractor plot, which is sort of like the whole foundational piece of the bad guy plot.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, how are you going to do this? The intimation was that it was somehow going to be very dangerous to Boo, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to severely injure and or maybe even kill children? And then what? You're going to pull kids out of their bedrooms. You're going to do bad things to them and then put them back? I mean, and how are you going to stop from being someone spotting you doing this over a period of time to get enough scream in order to stop the scream shortage? It just, the logistics of it did not make sense. As I sort of sat down and thought about it, I was like, I think they could have come up with something. I don't know what. And I understand they were looking for something to solve the scream shortage that would, be nefarious, because you do need something nefarious. You need Boo to be in danger so that it triggers Sully's good guyness, right? So I get that. But the logistics of it just didn't, when you sat down and kind of thought about it, didn't really make sense. Again, children's stories, so maybe it doesn't matter. But that's kind of what I got a little stuck on.
That's a good point, because they did the Scream Extractor on one of the monsters, and it's like he was left. Like, is he dead now? Was like his soul drained out of him?
No,
like,
because he was back. He was back later.
Yeah, that's right.
Because at the very end, he put on the Groucho glasses.
Yeah. So maybe it's just a way to like extract maximum scream and then you come back the next night and do it again. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have a million of those machines, like for every kid? You go into their bedroom, or do you have to do them one at a time?
For whatever it's worth. Again, children's story doesn't have to be perfect. So, I'm just looking at this from the perspective of story, what I might have changed, doing something that would be a little bit more efficient, but obviously the story works because it's a great movie. So let's talk theme. What kind of themes did you pull from Monsters, Inc.?
Yeah, the theme's interesting. I think there's a clear theme of friendship with Sully and Mike Wazowski, obviously. I think there's a theme of doing the right thing is always worth it. It works out at the end, right? At least for them. I mean, that's kind of a message that is presented, whether or not you agree with that. That seems to be one of the things that they're saying because, like you said, it could have just been done with this at one point and just put her back in a room and that's the end of that. But they didn't. They tried to do the right thing. I think there's also a theme of it's always better to work with others than to try to use them, right? Looking at the scream machine, right? We're just going to suck the scream out of them versus, hey, let's be sort of make this a two-way street. We're going to make you laugh and that's going to give us more energy. So it's better to, approach it from a more positive, cooperative perspective than a usefulness perspective. And I think there's something, I don't know that this was even remotely intended in the back of their minds, but it's something I thought about after I watched the movie. I was thinking about it some more. It seems there's a sort of theme of nuclear power versus fossil fuels, right?
Oh, interesting.
Fossil fuels are this diminishing resource. Well, nuclear power is essentially unlimited and generates way more power than fossil fuels do. So I was like, oh yeah, they have the laughter is like nuclear power. So anyway, yeah, those are the themes that I picked out. I think there's more there, so I'm wondering if you found something different.
The only other thing that I really focused on, I agree, friendship is like a big part of this, and they could not have done it without their friendship. But I also tagged in on the loyalty thing, and I talked a little bit about that more. But loyalty was a big component of this story. There was, the loyalty to Monsters Inc., the loyalty to Mr. Waternoose, the loyalty to each other as friends with Sully and Mike Wazowski, and also the loyalty to Boo. Once they kind of better understood her, they developed a loyalty to her as well and wanted to make sure she was safe and taken care of. So I thought that was an important element of just pulling out all those little pieces of loyalty and how that loyalty in the end worked by remaining loyal to each other and loyal to those things that were important to them. In the end, it worked for them. And so that's kind of what I pulled from it.
Yeah, that's great. I like that one.
Yeah, thank you. So as a writer, what do you take away from Monsters, Inc.?
For me, I think I'll go with that you can, as a writer, you can have the reader or viewer, whatever, overlook some small plot inconsistencies or issues, things that we talked about, as long as your story has propulsion and you care about the characters. Right, that like keeps you into it, keeps you invested. That's why you're there for the story. It's like, yeah, maybe there's some weird little plot things, but and you try to fix those as much as you can and make it work. But ultimately, it's about the characters, right? And do you care about these characters? And is it moving forward? Is the story moving forward? Are you invested? So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, good. That was a good one. Yeah, and mine is also about the characters, about how solid they are. And Sully is furry, but he's still a very solid character.
That's true.
They're just really, again, they were well developed and they stuck to who they were.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. And as a writer, that's, what I want to do is make my characters and then make them solid for who they are.
That actually makes me think of another interesting choice that they made. A really good choice with the design of Sully. Right? He's their scare leader, right? He's this super scary monster. But as we see when Boo first sees him, she sees him as Kitty, right? This soft, fluffy guy. And yeah, it was brilliant to design him that way, where he can go. He can be either way. Otherwise, I don't think it works.
Thank you for joining us as we talked about the story told in Monsters, Inc. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters and all our subscribers. We're so grateful for your support and your encouragement. The Stories Told podcast is available on multiple podcast platforms, and we thank you for liking and subscribing or following, depending on where you're listening. It may not be a big deal to you, but it means a lot to us. If you have a favorite book, movie, or TV series you'd like to suggest for the podcast, leave a comment on the YouTube channel, and that link is in the show notes. You can find Michael Grayford at michaelgrayford.com and E.W. Barnes at 1000years.com, and those links are also in the show notes. Join us next time as we talk about the story told in All Systems Red, novel by Martha Wells. Thanks so much, Mike. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the Stories Told podcast.